Okay, I want you to picture something for me. And just bear with me because this is going to sound a little strange.
All right, I'm ready.
Imagine you're in a speakeasy. It's the 1920s. It's smoky, it's crowded, you've got the flapper dresses, the pinstripe suits. A jazz band in the corner just going for it.
Okay, I'm there. The whole jazz age vibe.
Exactly. But then, and here's the twist, right as that trumpet hits a high note, bam! The whole room just, like, teleports.
Oh, where to?
To a massive warehouse rave in, say, 2010. There are lasers, a huge sound system, and thousands of people just waiting for the beat to drop.
That's a chaotic image. I imagine a lot of confusion.
You would think so.
Yeah.
But in this version, nobody panics. The drummer from 1929 just looks at the DJ, gives a little nod, and they start jamming together.
Oh, I see where you're going with this.
And the crowd loves it, that sonic clash. That is the only way I can think to introduce the topic we're diving into today, Electro Swing.
It's a vivid way to put it, but you're spot on. We're looking at a genre that on paper really shouldn't work at all. It's a fusion of, pre-World War II, swing jazz, big band, and gypsy jazz with the production of modern electronic dance music, EDM.
It's clarinets meeting computers. It's Heidi-Ho meeting the bass drop.
Precisely. But before we get totally lost in how fun it is, and it is fun genre, our sources are pointing to something deeper.
Okay.
They describe it as a complex intersection of recording history and modern technology. So it's not just a retro fad.
That sounds a lot heavier than the music actually feels. I mean, when I listen to it, I just want to dance.
And that's the magic of it.
Yeah.
But think of it as reconstruction. It's not just remixing. We're talking about taking these cultural artifacts, these little pieces of sonic history, and physically forcing them to work on a modern dance floor.
Forcing them. I like that. So let's unpack this because I think most people have heard it, right? In a car commercial, maybe a movie trailer.
Oh, for sure.
It has that vintage feel, but it hits like a modern club track. So what is actually happening under the hood to make those two worlds collide?
To really get it, you have to look at the two parents of the genre. And you have to realize they're opposites.
Okay.
So parent number one is swing, 1930s America.
The pop music of its day, basically.
It was the pop music.
Yeah.
And it was all about dancing. You had a 4-beat rhythm, big horn sections, and crucially, syncopation. That swing feel. It's loose. It breathes.
When you say breeze, you mean the tempo isn't perfectly rigid, right?
Sure.
It's not a metronome.
Exactly. It's human. It might speed up a tiny bit when the band gets excited or settle back. It's defined by what we now call human error, but really it's human feel.
Okay, so that's parent one. Loose, sweaty, human. Now for parent number two, EDM, house, techno.
Right. Which is also music for dancing, but the engine is totally different. It's all about repetition, mechanical precision, and what producers call the grid.
The grid. Yeah, I've seen that in recording software. It's those little vertical lines on the screen where every beat is supposed to land perfectly.
In modern EDM, the kick drum hits at the exact same millisecond every single time. It is robotically perfect.
So the irony is you're trying to marry the loosest, most human dance music with the strictest, most robotic form.
That's the entire conflict right there.
Okay, so here's my question then. We had samplers back in the 80s. Hip-hop producers were remixing funk and soul forever. Why did swing get left behind until, like, the late 90s or early 2000s?
It's a mix of technology and cultural timing.
Yeah.
The sources point to the late 90s as this kind of Wild West for digital music.
Right.
Two things happened. First, the bedroom producer revolution.
Mm-hmm.
Digital audio workstations designs became affordable. Suddenly, you could manipulate audio on a laptop in your dorm room.
The barrier to entry just collapsed.
Completely. And the second thing was the early internet and, well, the pretty loose management of copyright back then.
Ah, the Napster days.
In a way, it was a time of massive experimentation. DJs were crossing genres because the rules, both legal and cultural, felt kind of suspended. And people were starting to look back at retro stuff, not as just old, but as raw material.
Untapped potential.
Exactly. Funk had been sampled to death by hip-hop. But swing was fresh territory for the sampler.
Okay, so the stage is set. You've got the tech, the dusty vinyl, the will to experiment. But who's the one who actually lights the match?
Well, if we're talking about the architect of the sound, the name that comes up everywhere is Parov Stelar.
The Austrian legend.
Yeah.
I've heard a lot of stellar, like cat groove or booty swing. What strikes me is how, efficient it feels.
Efficient is a great word for it. His method was incredibly simple, but so effective. He'd take a vintage swing vocal or a really catchy horn riff.
Just a tiny slice of it.
A tiny slice, loop it, and then just lay it over a modern four-on-the-floor house beat.
It's genius. It gives you what he called jazz readability. Your grandma recognizes the tune, but with club immediacy. You don't need to know how to Lindy hop. You just nod your head to the kick drum.
And that was crucial. He proved this sound could work at massive festivals. He basically brought the gramophone to the main stage. But he's only one side of the coin.
The DJ side. The producer in the studio.
Right. On the other side, you've got the French group, Caravan Palace.
Oh, yeah. They feel completely different. Stelar is cool, calculated. Caravan Palace feels like a manic energy burst, like a riot.
Because they are a band. That's the big contrast. While Stelar's looping samples, Caravan Palace is mixing electronic programming with live instruments. Violins, clarinets.
Live musicians on stage.
Right. They incorporate gypsy jazz, pop. They show that Electro Swing could be a live performance art, not just a DJ set.
So you've got the architect with his loops and the band with their jam sessions. But I want to go deeper on the sound itself. We mentioned the grid. When I listen, it doesn't just sound like an old record over a new beat. It sounds tighter, punchier, almost aggressively clean.
This is where we get into the secret sauce, or what the sources call the technical compromise. And this is the part that, for me, is fascinating.
A compromise that implies something was lost. What did we lose?
In a way, we lost the swing. Remember how we said real swing has that natural bounce, that human error?
Yeah, that drifty feeling.
Well, to make that fit onto an EDM grid, you have to kill the error. Producers use time stretching and slicing tools to literally force those old samples to align with the modern beat.
So they're, what, ironing out the jazz?
That's a fantastic metaphor. Yes,
Yeah.
They are quantizing the rhythm. The actual swing feeling, which is technically a kind of triplet rhythm, often gets absorbed into a straight breakbeat or a steady 44 kick. To a jazz purist, it sounds unnatural. It sounds stiff.
It's like musical taxidermy. You're making it stand up straight, but the original life is different.
But for a DJ trying to mix tracks in a club, you have to do it. If the tempo drifted like a real 1930s band, you couldn't mix it. It'd be a train wreck.
Okay, so that's the rhythm, but there's another thing I notice. The noise. They keep the vinyl crackle in. Sometimes it seems like they even turn it up.
That is a very deliberate aesthetic choice. Absolutely.
Why, though? Just for nostalgia.
It's about signaling. Producers will leave in or even add vinyl crackle, surface noise, and they'll limit the frequencies. They'll cut the deep bass and the high treble from the sample.
So it sounds tinny, like it's coming from an old AM radio.
Exactly. It signals the past to your brain immediately. It creates the context. But then, and this is the technical magic, they combine that old noise with a modern trick called sidechaining.
Oh, I know this one. That's the pumping effect, right? Where the volume sucks in every time the kick drum hits.
Correct. It's a compression technique. So picture this. You have a dusty, scratchy 1930s horn sample. It sounds old, distant. But then the producer makes it pulse and duck in perfect time with a massive, clean digital bass drum.
That is so wild. You're physically forcing the 1930s to bow down to the 2000s beat. That contrast is the genre.
And it creates a friction that listeners find addictive. It feels familiar and alien at the same time.
But it's not just the audio, is it? The sources talk about a whole visual culture that came with it. You go to these events, it's not just T-shirts and jeans.
Oh, not at all. You can't separate the sound from the aesthetic. The sources describe this huge revival of 1920s and 30s fashion flapper dresses, suspenders, flat caps, but with a modern twist.
Like retro future.
Exactly. You'll see steampunk influences, neon accessories. Yeah. The music videos really push this look, mixing Art Deco graphics with fast, modern editing.
And the dancing. People are actually doing the Lindy Hop to this stuff.
They are, but again, it's a remix of the dance. The steps are updated. They have to be faster, sharper, more staccato to match those hard electronic beats.
You can't do a slow, traditional Lindy Hop to a Parov Stelar track. You'd get left behind.
You would. Now, looking at the map, where did this all start? Because it feels very European.
It does. Parov Stelar is Austrian. Caravan Palace is French.
It was primarily a European explosion. Austria, France, Germany, the UK.
So why there? Why not the U.S.? I mean, jazz is an American art form. New Orleans, Chicago. Why didn't America invent electro swing?
The sources suggest a really interesting theory. It might be due to a specific kind of distance from American jazz heritage.
Distance? You mean like emotional distance?
Cultural distance.
Yeah.
In the U.S., jazz is serious history. It's revered. It's academic. Chopping up a Louis Armstrong record in New Orleans might feel, I don't know, like sacrilege.
Right. It's sacred ground. But in Paris or Berlin?
In Europe, there was maybe less of that reverence for the purity of it, combined with a much higher acceptance of electronic music in the mainstream. They felt freer to play with the history, to treat it as raw material instead of a museum piece.
That makes perfect sense. It's the difference between renovating your own grandfather's house and renovating one you bought at an auction. You're less attached to the original wallpaper.
That's a great way to put it. And just briefly, the sources note something fascinating about Japan. It never became a massive radio thing there, but it found a very dedicated home in certain subcultures.
Japan loves a good niche subculture.
They do. And you have to remember the jazz kissa culture, those dedicated jazz listening cafes. There's a deep appreciation for the aesthetic. So Electro Swing kind of slotted into that love for retro modernism perfectly.
Okay, so we've got the history, the tech, the geography, but I want to circle back to that sacrilege comment. We have to address the elephant, or I guess the flapper in the room, is this.
Okay. You mean the criticism?
Yeah. Playing devil's advocate, is this just stealing history? Some critics say it's superficial. It's consuming the past as a fashion accessory without respecting the context.
It's a valid critique, and one that's often leveled at sample-based music. Is it appropriation or appreciation? The sources really wrestle with this, but the defense they offer is pretty compelling.
Which is?
They argue that Electro Swing updates access to music history.
How so? By making it loud.
By making it accessible. It treats the past not as something behind glass in a museum, but as editable material. A whole generation of young people might never, ever listen to a scratchy 1930s big band record.
That's true. They'd skip it in 2 seconds on Spotify.
Exactly. But they will dance to a Parov Stelar track that samples it. And maybe, just maybe, one of them looks up the original sample.
So it's like a gateway drug to jazz history.
In a sense, yeah. It's a form of cultural translation. It takes the raw data of the 1930s and translates it through the grammar of modern dance music so a 21st century audience can understand it.
And the genre has survived way longer than I think anyone expected. I remember hearing it in 2010 and thinking, okay, this is fun, but it'll be gone in 6 months.
It has shown remarkable resilience. And interestingly, the sources say that's because it wasn't over-commercialized.
Really? I feel like I heard it in every car ad for a while.
It had moments, sure. But as an industry movement, it lived on indie labels, on digital distribution. It wasn't pumped up by the major pop machine like, say, dubstep was.
Which usually just burns a genre out. The major labels saturate the market until everyone hates it.
Exactly. They squeezed the life out of a trend. Electro Swing stayed independent. It's a survival of the fittest thing. By staying somewhat niche, it maintained its community. It didn't burn out because it never really sold out.
That's a good point. And it's become this incredible tool for DJs.
It's the ultimate bridge genre. Think about it. It shares DNA with house because of the beat. It shares DNA with hip-hop because of the sampling. It shares DNA with rock and roll because of the energy.
You can pivot from almost anything to anything else.
It's the Swiss Army knife at the dance floor. It connects all the dots.
So what's the big takeaway here? We've got robots meeting flappers, debates about history. What does it all mean?
I think it comes back to that idea of cultural translation. Electro Swing proves that musical styles don't just die, they become resources.
It changes how you look at your record collection, doesn't it?
It does. We think of history as this fixed timeline. 1920 happened, then 1930 happened, and they're locked away. But genres like this show that the past is actually a remix waiting to happen.
That's a wild thought. It makes you wonder how much of what we listen to today is just a time-stretched echo of a century ago.
Probably more than we realize. Every time a beat drops, there's a ghost in the machine somewhere. We're literally dancing with ghosts.
So next time you're out and you hear that swing rhythm kick in over a heavy bass line, don't just dance, listen for the ghosts.
And maybe bring your dancing shoes.
Definitely bring the shoes. Thanks for diving in with us today.
A pleasure, as always.